December meeting of Georgetown-Scott County Planning and Zoning Commission. First item of business is the approval of the November invoices. Also, we need to, Ms. Mizell and Mr. Caldwell are absent. First item of business is the approval of the November invoices.
I make a motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
I second it.
Motion by Mr. Shirley, second by Mr. Cannon. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion approved. Next item of business is the approval of the December agenda. Motion to approve the agenda, please.
What about the minutes?
Minutes.
Oh, I missed the minutes, didn't I? Okay. Approval of the November 10th, 2016 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the minutes from November 10.
Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Moran. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion approved. Approval of the December agenda. Motion to approve the agenda, please.
I make a motion to approve it.
Motion by
December
Mr.
agenda.
Moran. Second.
I second it.
Who was that? Mr. Cannon?
Yeah.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Agenda approved. Items for postponement withdrawal.
There's, under new business, item A and item B are postponed.
So if you're here for the Crosswind Center subdivision or the Crosswind Center development plan, those have been postponed.
And also, under old business, I believe the Bevins residential subdivision plat is being withdrawn.
I think Mr. Langford wanted to make an announcement on that.
No, that's correct. Confirmed for the record, we are withdrawing that application.
So the Bevins Rural Residential Subdivision
Yes.
plat is being withdrawn.
Yes.
So if you're here for that one, that one is being withdrawn.
Can I ask a question
Okay.
about the other one, Constable?
Come forward, please.
Just passed over.
Isn't that the one that's to be opened and then continued next time?
Yeah, that's what I was
Crosswinds is.
I want it open and continued.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just want to make sure.
Okay, we'll come back to that then.
Next meeting.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah, that one just needed, if you recall, Mr. Chairman, it just needed to be opened up and then continued to next month.
Continue.
Okay, so we'll move on.
And then that way they'll know what dates to be back and so on.
All right, so the Bevins Rural Residential Subdivision plat has been withdrawn. We don't need a motion on that, do we, Charles?
Nothing.
Okay. And then, the next would be the consent agenda, which I don't think there's any for consent, is there, Joe? Nothing on the consent agenda. Right?
Rob, I think they got a
Technically,
question.
it is one Clark's pumping shut stop. Could go consent, there are no variances. I believe there's somebody here that. Yes, Joe, here. You here representing Clark's? Yes, that's correct.
Is anyone here to speak against the Clark's Pump and Shop?
I did have a question on that though, as far as
There's a neighbor that came into the office, so I mean, probably might show up late, so I want to hear it.
Okay, well, we'll hear it. Okay. We'll hear it.
When were the crosswinds?
We'll bring it back up here in a minute. So there's nothing on the consent agenda then. So moving along, we'll move to old business.
Mr. Chairman, if I could
Let's do the
suggest.
crosswinds first.
Yeah, if we could just go ahead and, because all
Yeah.
you're gonna do is open it and then continue it.
Yeah, let's do
And then
that
that way they
first.
can go ahead and they'll know what date. Yes, sir.
The Crosswind Center subdivision and the Crosswind Center development plan. Mr. Langford, can you come up, please? Joe, this will move to next month, will be continued to next month,
That's
right?
right.
Mr. Langford?
Continued, that's exactly right.
What's our next meeting, Joe, January 11th,
12th.
12th? So our next hearing will
But
be.
you need to open, I think you really need to open the public hearing and then continue it. Yeah, no discussion, no nothing, just open it, continue it. Because if we don't have it tonight, then there's at least some question as to whether you can continue it. So we need to open it, continue it.
How do you want to open it?
Do what?
Just say you open.
Yeah, just say,
It's open then.
but that's all you gotta
Public
say.
hearing.
And
Public
even-
hearing is now open and they wish to
Matt
continue.
can reserve his comments for the next meeting if you want to.
Yes.
If you would. if you
Please.
would-
Matt, come up there and reserve your comments for the next meeting, please. For the record.
Yeah, I'll reserve my comments on on both Crosswind Center applications for next month.
Okay.
And that's in agreement.
Application's in agreement with it?
Yes.
And for those in attendance, it'll be on January the 12th is when we'll be hearing that application.
Okay.
6 o'clock.
January 12th, same spot, 6 o'clock.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Continue.
Hearing closed.
Because people get sworn in.
It wasn't even public.
Whatever.
Today, Rob might want to swear everybody in.
Okay. Charlie, you want to try to swear everybody in?
Oh, yes, sir. Everyone who is signed in to speak tonight, if you could stand and raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the statement you're to make tonight to be the truth to the best of your information and belief? Thank you.
So our first application we're going to hear is PSP 2016-51 Abbey at Old Oxford. That's under old business. At this time, I'll recuse myself from this hearing.
Oh, you got the slips, where are the slips?
Oh, they didn't bring them.
I know, do you bring slips?
I'll grab them.
Okay. Joe? Vote on it? No, yeah, to vote. Go ahead, Joe.
All right. This is a
Thank you.
continuation of a case that we heard and deliberated on last time. This is Abbey at Old Oxford, an amended preliminary subdivision plat on Old Oxford Road. There's a preliminary subdivision plat that was approved on this site in 2008. The application tonight is to amend that previously approved preliminary plat. This site is zoned R1C PUD. It was approved for a combination of single-family homes and multifamily buildings, anywhere from duplex to 12-unit buildings. The size of the property is 126 acres. The first phase has already been developed. The approved density on the previous plat was 4.4 units an acre. The total number of units previously approved is greater than what's being requested tonight. It was 553 units. The preliminary plat, amended plat that's before you tonight is reducing that to 463 units, I believe.
285 and 116.
We'll get into that shortly. Where we left off, there were really two sticking points. One was the condition of Old Oxford Road and whether it was in good enough condition or safe enough condition or had the capacity to serve this subdivision. And the location of the multifamily component. Previously, it was a combination of multifamily buildings. They are requesting to move that and to do strictly detached townhomes at the front of the site along Old Oxford and Herndon Boulevard, as opposed to internally. Just to review, it's the location. It's northern part of Old Oxford Road at the city limits. Backs up to Pleasant Valley subdivision. Previous approved preliminary subdivision plat includes multifamily in these areas internally, and it's a combination of larger buildings and duplexes and fourplexes and sixplexes. The request before you is to get rid of all that, do only single-family lots in the back, and move the townhomes up front, keep the same general road layout and the same connections to Pleasant Valley in the back, and the same connectivity to adjoining parcels. It was continued at the last meeting, And the request was for the applicants to look at the townhome area, see if they could do it internally on the site as was shown on the previous plan, and also for us as staff to look at Old Oxford Road to see if we could come up with a timeline for its improvement. Since the last meeting, the applicants, this is the existing phase one that's built out. Since the last meeting, the applicants have amended the plan to address, they weren't able to accommodate the townhomes internally, and they can get into the reasons for that, but they did reduce the number of townhomes proposed from 129 to 116, and they did strengthen this buffer between the townhome area and the single-family lots along Herndon and along Old Oxford Road. And they're proposing to make up or to use the area saved by the reduction in the number of townhomes to add this buffer that's 50 foot in width with a 3-to-1 slope buffer area with the height of the buffer, I believe it's 7 feet, with plantings along the top of it. And we have a detail in the plan, and they've provided tonight a further detail, kind of more of a species-specific plan that shows the layout, and it's a combination of deciduous trees and evergreen trees. So evergreen essentially along the top of the buffer, and then deciduous on either side, a combination of small trees on the exterior. And we have that. So essentially the changes to the plan are the reduction in the number of townhomes and the adding of the buffer to provide separation between the single family and the townhome area. We did recommend a number of changes last time, or I guess I should rephrase that. We did add a number of conditions of approval based on the previous plan, and we did recommend approval. One suggestion we made at the last meeting is that they provide, if they are going to do the townhomes up front, they provide a substantial buffer there. They have done that. So we are recommending approval, again, to this updated plan with the same conditions that we had last time. And those are conditions 1 through 15. And I have added 2 conditions that address kind of the changes that were proposed. And I'm kind of skipping through. I didn't want to rehash everything we talked about last time, but there were kind of two issues that weren't fully resolved. One is the lot width, the minimum lot width. There was a question about, can we provide or allow flexibility on the cul-de-sac lots? I'm recommending that we stick with a minimum 55-foot lot width on the lots that aren't on the cul-de-sacs, but we allow some flexibility to reduce the width at the building line on those irregularly shaped cul-de-sac lots, that they'd be allowed to be reduced to 50 feet as long as the minimum lot size stays at 6,000 square feet, which is what was approved in the previous plat approval in 2008. So that condition 1 is new, and then I'm suggesting we add 2 more conditions based on discussions last time and at workshop. One is that the construction entrance be looked at the time of construction plan approval. It would be beneficial to have the heavy construction traffic off Herndon, so if we can have a construction entrance directly onto Oxford, I think it would serve the neighborhood better and keep that heavy traffic off Herndon. But we have to kind of determine where a safe location would be, and whether, if we do allow a construction entrance on Old Oxford, that you know, it can access the rest of the site based on where the wetlands are. There might be, it might be tough to cross the wetland area if we don't use Herndon as the main construction entrance. So I'm proposing that we look at that at the time of construction plan review. And I've kind of repeated 14 and 15.
14's different on the
Yeah, I forget what that was now.
It-
What's 14?
capping it.
Oh, okay. We talked about if we allow flexibility on the cul-de-sac lots, that we cap the maximum number of lots at
Yeah,
what's
that's
shown.
That's 14.
Okay,
And then
that should be 14.
Is the construction interest being approved at time of construction?
Okay, so I'm suggesting adding a kind of revised condition 1 that I just went through. Condition 14 being that the maximum number of lots allowed is 463, which is what's shown on the or the number that's shown on the submitted subdivision plat, which I don't have the number in front of me, but it's on the plat itself. I think it's 463.
I think you're right, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that's enough.
So cap the number of lots at 463. So if we do allow some flexibility on this cul-de-sacs, that that's not used to increase the overall number of lots allowed. And then the construction plan, condition number 15.
I did have a question on that, Joe. I think we show here 285 single-family lots and 116 townhome units. Where's the 463 come in?
That comes by adding in the already existing lots in the subdivision.
All the
So
ones
it
up
would
front.
be inclusive of the already platted lots in phase 1.
I understand. All right.
And I guess to address the old Oxford Road situation, we didn't really come to a complete resolution, but we did meet with the city, and the city engineer is going to do a cost estimate, a couple cost estimates for improving Old Oxford Road. The first one being widening to city standards, which is a 24-foot wide road, 2 12-foot lanes, 4-foot shoulders, and improved ditch lines with turn lanes at all the entrances. And then an alternative, just straightening out that dangerous curve in the road, and just redoing the ditch lines and repaving the street. So it's going to look at a couple cost estimates, and then we're going to use that to determine the amount that the existing developments along Old Oxford are required to contribute to improve their sections of the road along their developments, and try to move forward that way. Once we have the cost estimates, we can get all the parties together and try and determine how we can either, get the existing developments to go ahead and do their improvements that are required once they access the road, do that up front, or collect some fee in lieu of those improvements and have the city do the widening. But there's no money budgeted. We're just at this point just looking at the cost estimates for improving the road, and that should be done in the next, I would say, 2 to 4 months. Rough estimate.
And it would
when
just
that
be a
could
study?
It would be, yeah, it would be an engineering study of the profile and grading and what the cost of construction would be, a rough idea of the cost of construction.
Thanks, Joe. Any questions?
Is that the city road all the way out there, Joe, to the subdivision?
It's a city road to the city limits, then it becomes a county road. So just past the subdivision is the edge of the city limits and the urban service boundary. And then it becomes a county road out to Newtown, or, Newtown.
Since we do not know what that's gonna cost, or therefore if it will be done, how does that impact how we should handle this application?
Well, I mean, I just wanted to give you that information of where we were in the planning stages of that road improvement. So you know, I guess this goes back to this, there's already an approved preliminary plat on this site, so this is an amendment to an already approved plat. So if you feel like the road is insufficient to handle any development in that, on this property, then I guess you need to vote your conscience. But I mean, there is an approved plat, and the purpose of looking at studying the road is to figure out how we can move forward with getting that improvement done. This site, we require sufficiency of infrastructure for any new development, but they're only required to widen the portion of the road that they have access to, and they have the ability to widen. So on this site, they did widen the road in front of their property, and that's all really they can legally do. I mean,
They've already done that.
Yeah, and they've done that. I mean, they can't, they're not allowed to work off-site in public right-of-way without.
And I apologize for not being at the meeting yesterday. Was there any prioritization given to this particular street? Did Kyle go over? Was Kyle there?
Yeah, Kyle was
He talked
there.
about where it is. I know they talked about, and I talked about it last meeting, they talked about scanning roads to prioritize roads based on true needs, not, political judgment of when the road needed to be approved. So it was actually a process and scanning. Did he talk about that at all? Where did they find it? Because they had scanned it a while back.
It is a high priority road, and they are going to do work to it. I mean, they're going to do, kind of talked about, they're going to clear some dead trees, to fill potholes, and generally improve what they can with the budget they have. But it is a high priority. We didn't rank it above or against other projects that they have ongoing.
Thanks, Joe. Any other questions? We'd hear from the applicant first. We'll get to you. Okay. I promise I won't pass you out. Thanks, Joe.
Yep. Oh.
The applicant.
Good evening, Nick Nicholson here on behalf of the applicant, Ball Homes. As Joe mentioned, since this is a continued hearing, I'm going to try to be really brief since everything I've already said is still of record. We're in complete agreement with the conditions of approval that Joe just described, including the change to the lot width, the capping of the units to 463, and the construction entrance language. The main change, as kind of Joe indicated, is the landscaping berm. What we basically did was we pushed the townhomes further back than where they were away from the existing residential. We have put in a 50-foot wide berm that is, at its peak, it's 7 feet tall, but on top of the 7 foot, we are putting plantings that are 8 feet at planting. So you basically have do some math real quick, 15 feet at planting. On both sides of the berms, not at grade, but above, like halfway down the berm, there are plantings on both sides, both the existing residential and the townhome sides. It is heavily landscaped is the best way that I can put this. If you kind of look at the development plan from where it's now been shifted over, the area that kind of encompasses that berm, we're talking about basically 150 feet from the existing residential property line to the back porches of these townhomes. So we have pushed them as kind of far away as we can from the existing residential. One thing I do want to really point out is that we can't just look at the impact that these townhomes, this development has on the existing residential. You have to look at the impact that it can have on the kind of area in general. And that includes the Pleasant Valley neighborhood that is already in existence that we will tie in after 151 of these kind of houses are platted. And when you think about this, it gets back to the situation that we have to talk about, the massive reduction in density that this plan is proposing. We are cutting it down from the approved 4.4 units per acre. We're knocking it down almost an entire unit to 3.7. The previous plan showed a mix of 55% single family to 45% multifamily with 100 more units than what we're proposing. The plan before you today is 75% single family. If you were looking at kind of the word of like, well, how can a developer and a residential complex next door compromise? You're taking 250 apartments and turning it into 116 townhomes. You are taking a project that is basically a 1-to-1 ratio with multifamily and single family, and you're turning it 75-25. I don't know how much more of a compromise you can really talk about when you're looking at the numbers like that. Simply put, this reduction in density, 100 units, is a huge gain for this area. And that includes Pleasant Valley, that includes the travelers on Old Oxford now. With us being in agreement with the conditions of approval, no one can argue that we're not in complete compliance with the subdivision regulations. We are. Typically in this situation, the approval of plats is ministerial in nature. It's in complete compliance, the plat moves forward. And I understand that things are a little bit different because there is already an approved plat on this site. But again, when you look at the reduction in density that this is offering, I think that we kind of, for the good of the area, it should move forward because eventually this property is going to be developed. And right now, the development plan that's on there is not nearly as good as what's in front of you all today. So while some of the neighbors may feel that by stopping this plat today, that means development stops on this property, that's simply not the case. This property is going to be developed, and if it has to be developed on the existing plan, I think the existing neighbors suffer. Pleasant Valley certainly would suffer. Old Oxford would suffer. And so we would respectfully request approval of the plan that's before you today that represents even more of a reduction of density than was here last month. So I'll happily answer any questions, but hopefully I kept that brief as I promised.
Any questions for the applicant?
I don't have any.
No. Okay. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Before anybody would like to speak, what I do want to make a comment is this is a continuance from last month, so I'd ask that you not come up and repeat the same things that was said last month so we can all get out of here at a decent time. If you had to have additional information, more information that you didn't bring last month, then please bring that up. So anybody to speak against or in favor of?
Good evening. Thanks for letting me do this the third time.
Oh, please state your name.
My name is Larry Roach. I live at 201 Rhodes Lane.
Thank you.
First of all, I see Ball compromising quite a bit, and it makes me feel better. I mean, personally, it does. They've done some things that are positive. We had a meeting, a neighborhood meeting with him. I can't say that we left there with a consensus, by no means, but at least we were able to clear the air. All right, a couple of questions I'd like you to ask Ball, if you will. Well, first of all, I understand the phasing will not include townhomes. Phase one, I mean, excuse me. Is that?
That's correct, yeah, we're.
Okay. Secondly, I'd like them to go into a little bit of detail and describe this HOA business. Because I don't understand exactly how it's going to work, who it would affect, and how much, that kind of stuff. All right. The way I feel about it is this, and not rehashing much. Old Oxford is a serious problem. And I see this as an opportunity for this commission to fix that problem. Now, it may not happen immediately because we know about construction, we know about bond issues, we know about this and that in studies. But if we could leave this issue with some comfort level where the city has stepped forward, and I heard what Joe said, that was very informative, Joe. But if we leave here with a little stronger comfort level that they're going to do something about it, because the study can take good Lord, who knows how long. And if they would simply commit to the schematic design and cost estimates, financing plan, it would make me personally feel better. We don't have a formal representative in our neighborhood yet, so some of this is my language. The only other thing that I would say, the construction access is of serious concern to me. Coming down Herndon Road, all of us have had construction immediately by our properties, and it ain't been easy. It ain't been easy. Now, I'm the last to get it, I think. So anyway, that's kind of tough. But if we could move and do what Joe suggested, an access off of Old Oxford down the back of the property somehow, it would make me feel better. So with that being said, I ask you to table this issue until the city can step forward and guarantee that we're going to have a project. Now, that doesn't mean we can't start building houses before that project starts. I mean, we can do that. But as long as we get some assurance that they're going to fix that road, then I personally feel better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Anybody else who has additional information or questions? I think we'll take them, and then the applicant can answer.
I'm Melissa Kramer. I live at 214 Rhodes Lane, and I've just written something down so I don't forget anything. So while we appreciate that Buddy Goodwin from Ball Homes came and met with residents from our neighborhood, and that Ball Homes has tried to alter their original plan by lowering the amount of townhomes they'd like to develop and create a berm around the townhomes, we still are opposed to this development plan. It is our understanding that no one thinks the original plan with the apartment complex area is a good idea. Ball Homes agrees with this, and they've said that they wouldn't build that anyway. This property has been available to develop for nearly a decade, and no one is rushing to the table to develop it that way. So we should not be making this decision out of fear that it's at least a better option than the original plan. Second, Old Oxford Road cannot safely accommodate all of the additional traffic that this would bring. We feel like it is the responsibility of this committee to work with the City Council to come up with a plan to widen the road before the development of this area is continued. If this plan is approved first, there's no great incentive for the city to make this change, and I think they'll just take their time to do it. They've had 8 years to think about the fact that there were that many units that were supposed to come in, and they haven't made the change in that. So what makes us feel like that's going to happen if we approve all of this right now, that road is just going to magically get widened because we've talked about it in this meeting. Third, Ball Homes does not have mixed use. Ball Homes does have mixed use developments like this in Lexington. They're in the Hamburg area, Masterson, off Man-O-War and Nicholasville Roads. This makes sense in a busy urban area, but not in our subdivision. Ball Homes has 6 other developments in Georgetown, and there are no townhomes in any of them. We are the most rural of all of them and down a country road. This is not the place to put these. Based on Ball Homes' website, their Nicholasville, Richmond, Frankfort, and Versailles developments do not have any of these townhomes in them either. I called and talked to a staff member at the Mill today, which is an apartment and townhome development on Old Oxford Road right by Kohl's. They have 238 units, and 215 of them are townhomes. They rent for $1,026 to $1,456 a month. They have a pool, a clubhouse, they have a fitness center, and they have available units to rent. It's our understanding that luxury apartments are being built across from Kroger. There are already nice rental developments in the works. These developments are not mixed in with single-family homes. It's not necessary to put townhomes in our subdivision to meet any felt need in the Georgetown community. We're not trying to be unreasonable. We understand that this area is going to be developed. We would be happy for Ball Homes to be the developer if they come back to the table with a development plan that includes only single-family homes. We do not believe that they're really going to walk away from developing this area just because they can't put townhomes there. They could just as easily put single-family homes in that front section and keep the rest of their development plan for our subdivision the same. The homes that they have built in our neighborhood have sold well and quickly, and most between $200,000 and $300,000. This area is a good investment for them, and the housing market is only picking up. Scott County is the fastest growing county in the state. We urge you not to undervalue or settle for a subpar plan for developing our subdivision. They say they're knocking down the density in order to do this, but they would knock it down even farther if they would just put single family homes in that front section. And I would say that the argument that was just made about Pleasant Valley being excited about this, I bet Pleasant Valley isn't really excited about any of this tying into their subdivision, so I don't really think that that's probably a good argument.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak?
My name's Mike Curtis. I live at 213 Rhodes Lane. Ball's going to develop. I understand that. I'm okay with what they got. The issue I have 3 children getting close to driving age. That road is unsafe, period. There's no, I drive a service truck. If I meet another vehicle, I got to basically get off the road to get past them. Not to mention concrete trucks, these big lumber trucks coming in there. The road is unsafe from the start, so that needs to be addressed.
Thank you. Anybody else? No one else wants to speak? Sir, you didn't stand up and swear in, so Charlie, would you swear him in?
From last week.
I think you still have to swear in again.
Do you swear or affirm what you're about to say to be the truth, best your information you believe?
I do.
And your name again, sir?
Ernst Thomas.
Thank you, sir.
215 Rhodes Lane. I just want to know, when you said the city road, is that a city road all the way to Newtown Pike?
No, just to the city limits.
Where's the city limits at?
It's just beyond the edge of this property. So.
Where's your red light at?
There's no, we don't have a line on this map, but it's
Let me go up here.
about 100 feet north of the town-owned area.
Back over here?
Yes, that's right. It's the end of the city.
I don't know. I thought I was living in the county when I first moved here. I thought it was county, so. So rural.
He can show you on that map right there.
I thought I was moving to the county.
Well, there's the crossing right there. So it starts kind of at the edge of the town-owned on the
That's all I need to know.
Thank
I
you.
used to be 5 miles from the city now.
Would the applicant like to respond to some of those? And I apologize. I'm dying.
With regards to Mr. Roach's question, I will confirm on the record, since we were back there, Phase 1 is not going to include the townhomes. Based on the way that the 151 lot requirement before we tie in goes, most likely you would see the single family behind the townhomes right now be part of Phase 1, and then the kind of part that will connect into Pleasant Valley, kind of below the green space, would be part of Phase 1. That is the most likely plans that we have right now. We are going to be having an HOA. We've already turned in all of the documents to planning, and they have basically the same covenants that are existing on the current Phase 1. It's just, quite frankly, better language. Before it was very vague, it was a very short document, and now we have kind of more of a encompassed HOA documents that Mr. Goodwin can certainly discuss more at length if anyone has specific questions, but they ensure that it's the same type of development that that was always considered as part of Phase 1. With regards to Old Oxford, I know that this may sound counterintuitive, but I believe that staff and Mr. Perkins will likely back me up on this point. When houses get built that helps roads increase on priority. The more traffic that is on there, the more the city will feel the urge to actually move forward with the plans of widening and doing construction. When the traffic stays the same, the city will not feel any urge to move forward with those types of plans. Just having development plans doesn't give the city any sense of urgency. When houses start getting built, I think that is where the urgency comes from when you're looking at the roads getting built. And I must make this point one last time. The development plan with a much greater density was in existence when everyone bought the houses that are existing. They bought the houses with this development in place, knowing the condition of Old Oxford. The fact that we are now trying to lower the density on what they bought in, I don't think should stand in the way for this plan to go forward based on the conditions of Old Oxford, because a much more dense development with much more multifamily and beds was approved in the conditions of Old Oxford. I'll take any questions if you all have.
Any questions?
Yeah, on the berm.
Yes, sir.
You said you're not going to do the townhouses till later. That's
Yes,
phase
sir.
one. You're going
Yes,
to do
sir.
that. Are you going to do the berm to keep? Are you going to do that
The berm
right
will
away
have
before you do the houses, the townhouses?
The berm will most likely be kind of constructed at the time of the townhomes due to the fact that we don't exactly know where this construction entrance is going to be going. So we don't want to go ahead and put the berm in place knowing we might actually have to be bringing construction vehicles over there. So it will be built at the contemporaneous with the townhomes, yes.
The only other question you may not have answered was the construction access. Is there a potential access besides?
We're happy to talk about it at the time of the construction plans. And I don't think we're adamantly against, as Mr. Roach is saying, but as Joe pointed out, there's a lot of water already over there in that area. It's not going to be a situation where we can assure that no construction vehicles go on the road that's already been built. Some is going to have to go on there, but we'll hash out that issue at the time of the construction plans. We're not against that.
Okay, thank you. Any more other questions?
So, Buddy Goodwin, General Counsel of Ball Homes, I thought I'd speak to that since I talked directly with the president about it. But we were certainly willing to consider it. We obviously would love to minimize any traffic we could. There's the Herndon Road already has some turn lanes, and it's a bigger road. And if you go to the other side there's do you end up with trucks sitting on Old Oxford? And there's just a lot of considerations there. So we're certainly willing to look at it in very good faith. It's just there's probably some issues that along with the water and everything that Joe, all the people who do that, the lawyers, would need to work out. So, but we will definitely look at that good thing, and that's why we certainly agreed to the condition.
Thank you.
Did you have HOA? You said you wanted me to.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I really understood what.
Well, there's you've bought into a deed protected community, and it has restrictions, and we would just we would carry those restrictions on through. We would do that normally in our developments. I mean, we obviously try very hard to maintain a high quality of development. You all actually, Joe, I'm not over here as much as I am other places, but there's concern about that here. I think already there's some statutes that have been passed, or ordinances, I guess I should say, about continuity of development. And so I took the one document we had and tried to put some more things in there that make clear that the HOA takes care of their land and things like that the cities are concerned about. So, but there's an HOA there. We are not charging HOA fees right now because we're taking care of everything. So that's why some of that comes up, is they're not having to do that, and developers control HOAs while they're developing.
Sure, please, Mr. Roach. Oh, you have to step up to the microphone, please.
The concern I would have, well, first of all, I may have missed it. It may have been covered, but is there going to be an HOA for phase one?
There is an HOA for phase one. You're just not having
and
to.
you're the HOA.
Yeah, you're just
Okay.
not having to right now.
All right. Second question and last is, if you build the townhomes, that will be another HOA?
No, they will not be part of an HOA. They'll be privately owned. The townhomes, we discussed at the meeting, they're
Okay.
privately owned.
You guys
We
will own
maintain
them.
them, you all won't have to pay to maintain.
Okay. When will the HOA for us take effect?
Well, I mean, it's there from the perspective of the fact of an HOA is an entity, and then there's also your covenants and restrictions. The covenants and restrictions are already there under your section, and they're, every section we would file and move forward as we phased with the subplats. There would be another one to continue and keep all that together. I think that's the easiest answer.
And Joe and Charlie may be able to answer this, because I thought, what is it, the percentage of homes that are built, then the HOA's turned over to the homeowners? What's that number? Charlie?
That's part of the document.
Yeah,
Usually it's around 70 or 80%, but.
We usually do it right at the very end. But,
Okay.
But historically, we've always just mowed and paid for everything. We've been a company that I think historically, I've been here a year and a half, so don't let me overstep my bounds there. But we usually kind of mow and take care of things while we're building, and there's construction traffic. I live in one of our neighborhoods, and I built, so I understand construction traffic. It's kind of when you buy into a neighborhood like this, it's just one of the you get to pick your house and you get your great house, but you deal with those you deal with those kind of things. So, but that's it would be towards the end.
Okay.
I mean, is when it's control.
Just for clarification. Any other questions? Comments?
And we intend to build. We talked. The neighbors were fantastic. They were wonderful. They let me into their house, and they were very fair. They were very civil, we showed them some townhome pictures and stuff. I mean, we really want to build we really want to build high quality units that are higher rental units, and we really want to do this right. So I just want to make that clear, and we think it's a real improvement plan. Okay, I won't keep it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any more comments, questions? Yes, Mr. Wiseman.
Comment. I think Ball Homes is being very generous and planned things well. And I have no problem with the plan, but we're called a planning commission, and for us to leave the old Oxford Road part of the puzzle part out of the plan seems to me poor planning. And just because a previous planning commission approved this without considering the old Oxford Road issue doesn't mean we should be bound to ignore it as well. And that's the main thing that concerns me, is the old Oxford Road. It seems to me like the city ought to be committed at some date to improving it before all of this happens. And it seems like they're unwilling to do that.
Charlie, can you give?
Yeah, there are a couple of concepts, though, that I think we've got to keep in mind. I don't think anyone has said that a prior planning commission, first off, there's no prior when you all are it, because it's a continuation. But to say that they didn't consider it, that simply cannot legally be the case, because that's what the comp plan is based on. The comp plan is then used to base zone changes on, and then it's used to approve development plans and subdivision plans. So it was considered in all of those. At least what I'm assuming you mean by that is, well, maybe it shouldn't have been done the way it was done, but those things by law were considered at the time. And in fact, that's what, literally starting at the comp plan, that's what that's all about. Where can we put these things? What kinds of things can we accommodate? What kinds of things does the city and county need? What kinds of things do we want? These are the areas, and these things have been in place now for a couple of 3 comp plan processes. They've had citizen committees, as well as P&Z commissions, as well as governing bodies. So again, with all due respect, it has been considered. It's been considered long and hard. I'm not saying there aren't some disagreements on that, and I certainly appreciate the disagreements, but they've been considered, and in fact, as a legal matter, this was approved with that in mind, because we're required by law to look at that. That's part of the mapping, part of the land use plans, etc. So I think what people are saying is not that you can't look at that, and not that we shouldn't, because you're right, pressure needs to be brought to bear on local governments, on planning commissions, on everybody at each stage. and continually, because as things get used, things get damaged, etc. But once we give a zone change, we're saying that this is the appropriate zone classification. They come in and get a development plan or a subdivision plat. We look at the zone classification and, yep, that's what it is, and these are the things they have to satisfy. Then they satisfy those things. We really aren't in a position to say, well, we don't like what we did 10 years ago. Because we've got to anticipate things, and sometimes they work out as well as we like, and sometimes they don't, of course. But unless it's something of some tremendous change in circumstances, then the way we deal with that is we go back into the comp plan process, and we maybe remove some things from our inventory of residential or commercial, whatever it might be. But until we do that, these folks are in compliance, and they're in compliance with what we've asked them to do. And in fact, in this case, they're bringing in something that's less dense in use and less dense in usage than what's already there and what our comp plan says is appropriate. So again, I'm not really arguing with you, but all these things were considered because we are required by law, and they're discussed at every stage, and that's part of what we have to make findings on, what we then recommend to the legislative bodies.
I would point out one other thing too. On Old Oxford Road, there are multiple developments that have already been approved on that road. That it was assumed. I think these approvals are probably 2007, 8. Most of them prior to 2010, weren't they? And most of those assumed that when they made a connection on that road that they were going to improve that road. Those connections have never been made because of a major slowdown in 2007 and 8. So as soon as those things happen, when those connections are made, that road will be improved by those developers. But nobody could anticipate that things would change as quickly as they did.
2008 did change a lot. Now, there's no question about that.
So I think there was a comment earlier about this piece of property's been there since 2008 or 9, as have a lot of developments that they've pretty much just sat still until now. And things are moving much faster now.
Any other?
So I guess, Charlie, you're saying because when this was approved by the Planning Commission back whenever that happened, they in essence decided that Old Oxford Road was adequate, that now that we don't have the right to consider that it isn't.
What I'm saying, I'm not going to say you don't have a right to consider it. That's part of your responsibility too. The difficulty we've got is we approve an area for development and we anticipate certain things will happen. Well, they don't always happen. Sometimes one thing falls behind, sometimes something else may fall behind. Sometimes we've got properties that don't develop for 20 years. In fact, there's one not far down the road, that was approved, zone change, my God, I can't remember how many decades ago. So, I mean, things don't always work, with any synchronicity. But the problem becomes, I don't believe we have the authority then to say, well, we've got 10 things approved, but this one's not going to go forward. Or we're going to take these two. Or, as Joe was talking about, or you're going to go off-site and make we can't do that either. All we can do is, best we can, study the situation, make estimates on what's going to be, put them in places where they need to be, and then hope the city's able to, hope we don't have an economic downturn in 2008, hope all these things, because sometimes they don't work. But once we've given them improvement and all they've got to do is satisfy our regs, and they do, we really don't have a whole lot to fall back on. Now, if we had a subsidence out there and the road disappeared, I don't think the courts would say we can't stop things. But if it isn't something that momentous, I'm not sure that we can do that. Because we've made those things at several different stops along the way. Now, we may want to slow down things in the future, but things, especially that are already approved, we just don't have that kind of authority.
Thank you.
Any more comments, questions? Mr. Roach?
You have the right to slow it down. I would take exception with that. You can slow it down and get the commitment from the city. Your comments were well taken. They were very good. You can do that. I mean, Ball could turn around and sue us, I guess, or whatever. But you have the right to say to Ball or to whoever, to the city, we're not going to approve any of these changes until such time as we have a firm, solid commitment from the city. I've been trying for 4 months, all the time downtown, to get a bucket of paint thrown on the center of that roadway, and to get 3 or 4 dead trees removed. So us little people, we're sitting here thinking, my gosh, it's one thing for them to say, yeah, we'll get it done sometime. But please consider tabling this thing until we can get a firm commitment out of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, did you want to speak?
Kind of the same thing Larry just said. So what you're saying is, and I heard a while ago saying that the connection back through to Pleasant Valley won't be completed until after 151 units. You know, so what you're saying is, and what I hear everybody saying here is that you do think that Old Oxford Road is sufficient for the concrete trucks, the school buses, the drywall trucks, the lumber trucks to continue until we get 151 units. You believe that Old Oxford is good enough to support that kind of activity, and that's what I hear. That's what I hear. What's going on? I don't know that you all have the authority to change this or whatever, but I think, and I kind of agree with Melissa about the townhouses, but I'm willing to concede on that part of it. I don't think that's all that bad, and I do want to see the land developed. I just don't want anybody to get hurt. I don't want anybody to get killed in order for the city to say, oh, we should have done something.
Thank you.
I just want to make one point that when individuals call the city, it has some impact. When you have a kind of partner on your side that is one of the largest home builders in the county, it means a lot more. And so if we have a vested interest in Old Oxford expanding and improving, you better believe that we're going to be looking to do that exact same. So, thank you all.
Thank you. If no one else wants to speak, further discussion?
Please do. Please do.
I would like to make a couple comments, please. The first thing, I'd like to compliment Ball Homes for trying to accommodate and changing. I used to develop some property, not near as large as you folks, but I do know what it means to give up lots, especially in today's environment, today's world. I hope that the rest of the folks here understand what a large thing that is for these folks to do to try to accommodate. It's rare that any development going on close to existing homes is agreeable to everyone. Everyone thinks, well, this is all that's going to happen in Georgetown. No matter where you're buying or building a home, there's probably more to come around you. It's not going to stay open space. It's just fact. As far as Old Oxford Road goes, I don't know that anybody up here is not in agreement that it needs to be fixed. And I do know, personally, I've talked to some city officials. Obviously, we don't have the authority to fix the road, but we do have the responsibility to try to bring to light our citizens' concerns to our local government, both city and county. And I know I've talked to some of the magistrates, some of the city council people. I know some of the other folks up here have. It's not like we're not trying to accommodate all the situations. Governments move slow. We all know that. But I personally think with the enhanced growth, it should do two things. hopefully you folks vote. That's number one, to change things. If you don't like what city council's doing, vote them out. Get you somebody that'll take action. And there's several that have been there 8 years or more. But then also, in my mind, this is kind of micromanaging, but if we're talking about 477 new units going in, I know the townhomes probably won't be as expensive as this new homes, but I've been hearing between $200,000 and $300,000 per home. Just think of the property taxes that those units generate. Of course, your county taxes are a whole lot higher than your city taxes, but you'll be paying both. Someone will on the property. The Ball Home will be paying that same on the townhomes. So, and I brought this up before, when we've got a problem like this, to try to find a solution, then why not, if this development's gonna happen now, we know it's gonna happen. Back when, we didn't know for sure. That's why probably road improvement. You can't build a road to nowhere either. You have to kind of know what's, you know, and I know it's slow go, but why not appropriate some of these property taxes to go just to that program, to make sure that we've got the funding to take care of it. And then the money, in my mind, shouldn't be an issue, is what I'm saying. I know government doesn't work like that, but it's practical sense. Anybody else that does any kind of business works that way, and I don't see why it couldn't be done that way. That way, and that's usually the largest holdup, obviously, is the money to get some of these things done. In my mind, I don't see why these things couldn't be broke down in different areas, knowing the need for improvement, and going forward say, okay, then we're appropriating X number of dollars of these property taxes from this area that's generating the money to fix the problems. And that, I have had discussions with some of our other city officials. They don't like the idea, but I just want to let you know that we are trying.
Thanks, John. Anything else? I'll be fine. I got moonshine and water. Thanks, Johnny.
You didn't know what was in there, did you?
I need a motion or a...
No, I did want to say, I think about everybody on city council and the mayor, city engineer, they're all very aware that old Oxford Road is in real need of improvement. Not just improvement, it needs to be widened. It needs to be brought up to standards. And most of the road that we're talking about leading to this development would be improved at this point if those connections had been made as they were. People had probably assumed that they would be made 8 years ago, or 8 years ago when they approved this. And there's still a possibility that those things can be addressed in the next, I'm sure nothing's going to happen much this winter. There might be some potholes fixed, or don't even know what they can do with paint at this point. But if they can get some potholes fixed and do a little drainage work in the ditches, and I assume there won't be a whole lot of construction going on until springtime, but at that time, I think something's got to change over there. And there's been a lot of discussion there will be discussions going forward with the developments that do have frontage on Old Oxford, if they would be willing to go on and make those improvements. That's all I had.
I want to say one more thing to that. And so, based on what you're saying, and I agree with every bit of it, I know that's the way things are going to fall out. Nothing's going to happen this winter. I can't see that probably at all. The building is going to continue. I mean, I used to do construction, so I know it does go through the winter, however slowly and at a different pace. But so you bring the construction back in. Of course, it's going to build back during the warm months and stuff. And then how are you going to fix how are they going to fix the road while we're trying to get in and out of there with all that equipment and the school buses? That's what worries me more than anything else. The school buses, and I pass them all. It's a consideration, and it's a logistics nightmare in my mind. I don't see how you're gonna be able to, and I say you, I know it's not, I don't know how it's gonna be done without, what I'm seeing is 2 or 3 years in the future before any of this gets accomplished.
Thank you.
Well, it's gonna be obvious, anytime that you do road work, repair road work, you're gonna be inconvenienced. Obviously, there'll be many days that it'll be one way. People need to slow down, schedule their time a little better to get to where they're going, figure on a little more time. I know, and I had some discussions with some of my fellow commissioners earlier, and I've been on Old Oxford many, many times, but I was out there again today. And, you know, it's just obvious to me that once you're off of 460, off of Connector, people drive too fast on Connector Road also. Then when you turn onto Oxford, the light ought to come on and say, well, I better slow down to about 35 miles an hour here and not drive 50 like some people do on Old Oxford. That's a lot of the problem. I'm not saying that the roads don't need to be fixed, but it's a problem we have countywide. Ironworks, people just drive too fast. They need to slow down. That's a lot of the problem. And there will be some inconveniences, but, you know, and I've heard people complain about that. When you try to make improvements, inconvenience some people by 10 seconds, it's a major ordeal. Well, you're going to be inconvenienced to improve. And that's, I'm sure, when it comes time, and hopefully that's soon that Old Oxford is addressed, it's going to take a lot longer to get in and out of there because you're going to be inconvenienced.
I'm retired. I ain't no hurry anymore. No, you know, if there was some way, and I know the people in Pleasant Valley are not going to like this either. But if we could get that connected, there's another way in and out while all this is going on. I'm just saying.
I drive Old Oxford 4 times a day. My wife drives it twice a day. I try to drive 35, 40 mile an hour at the most. People try to pass you on that old road.
I do the same
They
thing.
drive too fast. Absolutely. I've driven it for 65 years.
But you know, it's not really safe
It's not. It wasn't safe 65 years ago.
to drive through those curves at 35. It's really not. Hey, look at the potholes.
We need a motion, one way or the other.
I'd like to make a motion to approve, based on staff's recommendation, all the conditions of approval, and to deny the variance.
Okay, we got a motion to approve, or I'm sorry.
To approve all the conditions, and to deny the variance based on staff's recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, I'd second the motion, and I would like to say that I don't take lightly your comments about the road, but I do think that we owe Ball Homes we can't just leave them hanging for the next 2 or 3 months. Because I'm not sure that this road's going to get fixed in the next 6 months or a year even, but it's going to. The more that something's happening out there, I feel that the more pressure there's going to be to get to address the issue. And as a planning commission, we plan things. We don't get to implement things. We can put some pressure here and there, or bring to attention the people that can address it. But
So we've got a motion by Mr. Moran and a second by Smith. We'll do a roll call. Chairman Wiseman? Or Commissioner Wiseman, I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm not there.
I suppose, yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Shirley?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And the vice chair says no. Okay. Motion passes 5-1.
Nick?
Thank you.
Nick, I need someone to sign the conditions.
Yes, sir. Right there.
All right, thank you.
I just wanted to mix it up a little. It didn't matter.
May I ask this guy a question? I was gonna ask him, sir,
Thank you.
sir,
God, I'm hurting.
sir, come here. When y'all moved out there and built these houses out there, did y'all, the road was like that when you built them, did you go?
We need to take a break.
You know how fast?
I'm okay.
We may need to.
Go ahead, you're back in charge. It's yours.
Okay. I didn't know whether y'all tried to do something at a particular time or not.
Joe, do we need to get these signed while they're here? Well, there's also one.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I have no idea, I just found it in the lane here.
You know, if they built out the road, that's why they built
I know, that's what I've been thinking too.
the plan for the other part of it.
You had to drive out there to see the house before you always drive back, you know, and say, "Hey, we gonna live on this road or?"
Let's move on with the next application.
Huh? Always your infrastructure's the last thing to be built anyway.
Most people. John, I just want to rough.
You ready, Joe?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Let's move on with the next application. Be the
All right, the next
ZMA
application.
2016-62 Saxor zone change.
Yes. The next application is a zone change in Sadieville. This is a property that's zoned light industrial at the entrance to Sadieville on Pike Street. Right before you go under the railroad overpass. It is a 1.54 acre parcel that has a historic building on it and then an old kind of metal storage building. It's close to the downtown area and it's planned on the future land use map of Sadieville for downtown commercial.
Thank you.
So looking at the KRS requirements for a zone change, the first thing we look at is it in conformance with the existing comprehensive plan for the city, and in this case it is, since this area of Sadieville is planned downtown commercial and the district requested is B3 downtown commercial. So they're asking for a change from light industrial to downtown commercial in order to reuse the building and be able to sell the building to a user that would like to do something that's more in fitting with the downtown area.
Joe, we do need to state this is a public hearing also for a zone
Yes.
change.
Okay. It is a public.
Public hearing is open.
The floodplain areas in our comprehensive plan, we asked for those to be zoned C1 conservation. In this area of Sadieville, the floodplain has historically already been zoned conservation. So this 1.54 acre parcel that's zoned light industrial also includes some floodplain along Eagle Creek that's zoned C1 conservation. So because this plan is in conformance with the comprehensive plan, we are recommending approval. The one condition being that when the zone change is approved by Sadieville Commission from I-1 to B3, that the C1 conservation stays in place. So the floodplain, with the change to the rest of the property, the floodplain should stay C1 conservation. There's no plan to make any on-site changes, so there are no other conditions of approval, but if there are, at a later date, any proposed changes to the site, we'll evaluate it, and it most likely will require a development plan approval that'll have to come through this commission, but at this time, there's no changes proposed to the site, so we are recommending approval with the one condition. that the C1 stay in place. And this would be a recommendation, and it'll have to go next to Sadieville City Commission for final approval. That's all I had. If you have any questions, I can answer my.
Did you
Bruce
say
Langford.
what, approving it to B3, Joe, what can be in B3 zone?
B3 is downtown commercial, so mixed use, residential's allowed, mixed use buildings, and then other specialty retail, other retail inside the building. There's no automotive related commercial allowed in B3, so it's just strictly retail, specialty, commercial, office, other small scale commercial uses.
Does anyone have any questions for Joe? Thank you,
I
Joe.
do have an aerial of the site here. So it is, as you just come into town, right before you go into the railroad.
You say down along
on
the
the
creek, the
left.
state, that's C1.
Yeah, this is C1, I believe, about right here. It drops off pretty steeply, so the floodplain is pretty close to the creek edge.
Any questions for Joe? Thank you, Joe. Is the applicant here to speak?
For the record, I'm Bruce Langford, and I'm here with Barbara Sagasser, the owner of the property. We accept his recommendation, and we have no comment unless you have questions.
Does anyone have any questions for the applicant? Sounds good. Is there anyone here to speak on this application? If there's no more questions, comments, we'll close the public hearing. We'll move to the commission and ask for.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to recommend approval of this application.
I'll second that
A
motion.
by Mr. Shirley, a second by Mr. Solsky.
And that would be part of your motion to adopt the recommendations of staff.
By staff.
Yes, yes, sir.
Very good, thank you.
This will be a roll call vote. Mr. Wiseman,
Yes.
Mr. Solsky,
Yes.
Mr. Moran.
Yes.
Mr. Shirley.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion approved. Thank you, guys.
Bruce, need a signature.
Next item of business is PDP 2016-63 at Clark's Pump and Shop Store. Go ahead, Joe.
All right, the next item is the old Swifty gas station site. It's been torn down at this point, and it's being redeveloped by Clark Central LLC for a Clark's Pump and Shop. The property is zoned B2. It's a little less than an acre. It's surrounded by other B2 properties. It's right on the north. It's right on the corner of McClellan Circle and Frankfurt Road. I believe it's the northeast or southeast corner.
Southeast, Joe.
Southeast, sorry. Property's cleared now, but the proposal is to build a larger building on the rear of the site. So a 4,736 square foot convenience store with a drive-through on the west side, and then a larger kind of pump canopy area. The property does meet all the uses allowed in B2. It's meeting all the setback requirements. There's a couple small issues with the site. One is that with the proposed layout and paved area, they are right up to the edge of the right-of-way. So the required landscape buffer around the site, the perimeter buffer, a portion of it's going to have to be on the state right-of-way. So we are requesting, prior to construction plan approval, that they get approval from the state to have that landscape in the state right-of-way, and they get approval for not only the buffer itself but the plantings. They have shown on the landscape plan that they can meet our landscaping requirements. They do have a large kind of grassy area over here, and some other grass areas that are being planted to meet the interior requirements. But the canopy requirements, and I didn't add this as a variance because they are showing they can meet the canopy, but a portion of the canopy may have to be met off-site. There's, I don't know if you look at the site, there's heavily treed area behind on the back, and that's partially off the property. So although not listed as a variance, I've added the condition that if any of that is removed, that they replace it on site to meet the canopy requirement. The entrance is real close to the McClellan Circle Frankfurt Road intersection, and there's stacking room for a left turn lane right in front of the site, but they are reusing the existing site or the existing entrance. But because of that and some discussions we had at workshop, and because it's typically our policy to try and get a cross-access easement between properties when access is an issue and when there's difficulty maybe getting in the main entrance, I have added since workshop the condition that they provide a cross-access easement and a driveway connection to the adjoining Valero site. And I did have the owner of Valero stop in, but he didn't catch me today, and I was hoping he'd be here today so he could hear that recommendation and maybe comment on it. But I did look at go out there, and the grade is okay, so it's possible to put in that connection. I don't really see it here, but there's maybe a 1 or 2 foot grade difference, but with the excavation and the new driveway and the new kind of improvements to the area around the canopy, they can safely make that connection. So I think it's a possible, I mean, something that can be done. I don't know if the Valero owner will fight it, and I kind of wanted to ask Charlie the question I didn't even get a chance to: can we force a cross-access easement on an already developed property?
And also, Joe, you're going to have added expense.
Yeah.
Because if you go back to that last picture, depending on the property line, which I'm assuming it's
well, the property
halfway
line is right here, so they can put in their they can put it in pretty close to the edge of the existing paved area on Valero. But without them in agreement, and I couldn't find the development plan for this Radio Shack Valero site. It was pre 1980, I'm guessing.
Pre-writing.
So there may have been an access. There may be a cross-access easement in place between these two lots. It's possible, but we don't have any record
Yeah, I don't
of
think
it.
it's ever been there. If there was.
Yeah, it hasn't been there, definitely.
If they were willing to do it, I think it would be good.
We may need to word that in a way that we're
Yeah, they need to
requesting
make
that.
maybe good faith efforts to acquire such a thing, but no, we have no authority whatever on the adjacent property.
I mean, if these were all coming in together, I think we clearly could require it, but I guess other minor comments on the development plan itself. There are some minor comments that we made on making sure that the sidewalk meets our minimum requirements, which is 6 feet on commercial sites. I think it was originally shown as 5. It may have been amended, but we need to make sure that that's in place, and they show on the final development plan that they can meet all our landscaping requirements. And I've addressed the canopy off-site in a condition, so we'd like to see them meet the canopy requirement on-site, but if they need to count this area off-site, we're just asking that if it is if those are removed, that they be replaced either along the perimeter or on this interior grassed area. The fire department did have one condition that they're asking them to add a hydrant at the entrance because the closest hydrant is across the street, and if there's a fire or any issue where they need to use that hydrant, they'd have to run the hose across the street. So they have asked for a hydrant at the entrance, and we've added, as well as the health department and Georgetown Municipal Water has some requirements for oil water separators and grinders if there's food service. So we are adding the condition that they meet the requirements of Georgetown Fire and Georgetown Municipal Water and Sewer and the health department. Other than that, we are recommending approval, and the only other major condition is that they get that off-site easement from the state road department for the any landscaping. They will also need to get an encroachment permit if they're doing any changes to this entrance, but they're proposing to leave the width as is and just use the existing entrance. I didn't have any other comments other than that cross-access easement, which believe I added, the wording I added, Charlie, you may want to read it if that needs to be amended.
Yeah, because it says install.
Install.
I think just make reasonable effort to acquire is the best we can do on that.
Joe, where you was, show us where you was pointing for the cross access, right there on this map right here.
Right here. It would be right.
But isn't that in line with the fuel tanks too? I mean, because
the fuel tanks are down, are right, the edge of the fuel tanks are right here.
Do they have enough room between the fuel tanks? And that,
I believe there is.
okay, we'll get with him now, Joe, if you.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions for Joe? We'll let the applicant go ahead and speak on some of these questions.
Just about the fuel tanks, I asked him about it. You said there were new fuel tanks that just been put in?
Well, let's let the applicant come up and speak on those if he would.
Sure. Good evening, Jason Harrod with BCD Construction. I'm speaking on behalf of Clark Central LLC.
What was your question there, Mr. Kent?
About the fuel tanks that are there now, were they taken out? Somebody said
They remain. They will be tested and approved by the state.
State, okay.
And
all right.
of course, the applicants' hopes are that they meet all the state requirements as is, but they would be replaced if necessary.
Yeah.
There was some discussion at workshop that they thought they were replaced a few years back. Do you have any knowledge of how old they are?
The information that my client has is that they were replaced, just before the station closed, just before Swifty had closed. So the time frame that they were in use they're not very old tanks.
Right.
Is what they understand to be true to them.
Been a little longer than that, but it hadn't been too long.
Right.
So the existing entrance into here will remain the same, or would be added another entrance off of McClellan Circle in?
So the entrance that exists now would be the only entrance into the station. It would remain exactly the same width, same location, and there wouldn't be any addition to that. In regards to a cross-access easement, my client is prepared to, that benefits them, is in their opinion. They're more than happy to provide that cross-access easement and whatever cost is associated with it, so that that would not have any impact on or cost impact to the Valero or Radio Shack property owners there. And the problem could just be getting the permission or easement to put it in could be the issue.
On the McClellan, trying to get a entrance off of McClellan Circle, did you guys apply to the state for that? Or
We did not.
Didn't even try?
Didn't try, and we don't have any intention to. The main reason would be the location of the building that we're proposing, and canopies and drive-through. It wouldn't allow for an
Doesn't line
entrance
up
off
right
there.
or something?
Yeah.
People would be using it for a cut through then too.
Could, yes, yeah.
Well, that's my concern too with the cross deal coming there?
The hope is that the cross access will actually cause less congestion exiting both, or it could cause less congestion exiting both the Valero
I'm not
and
too
Clark
concerned with the
station.
cars and the trucks. I'm more concerned with the RVs that's fixing to go in the big lot next to you over there.
No.
That's my only concern.
RVs?
Yeah, when Camping World gets open, they're gonna be wanting to put some gas in them vehicles. They start crossing, it could cause some major congestion right there.
Oh,
It's
it
just
won't
my
be that
opinion.
many.
That's just awful tight. Be running RVs across
They're
there.
selling new RVs. They're not coming in there.
They're servicing RVs too, so I'm just saying.
Are they gonna have gas pumps and stuff down there for the RVs? No?
They're not having gas pumps at the Camping World, are they, Joe?
Not like a retail pump, I think, I can't remember if they're gonna have a pump there to the roof, I'm sure they'll probably have a tank.
I mean, if I was pulling out there with an RV and I seen a cross and I wanted to go to the marathon, I'm coming right through Valero and heading to the marathon. I can just see some congestion going on.
Yeah, but
there.
you're a hard-headed fella.
Tractor-
They're not- You're just a hard-headed fella. They're not.
Well, that's been said many a time, so we're not gonna disagree with that one. Shut up, John.
He's like Eddie on Christmas vacation, isn't he? Eddie.
Cousin Eddie.
What about if the cross thing happened to be right where the tanks are? Does that cause an issue with the tanks, or?
It would. You would have to get, the tanks would have to, we would have to provide a road grade cover for the tanks. But I've done some preliminary measuring, and I believe that cross access will work. In the location that Joe's talking about, it actually works fairly easily, in fact.
You got any questions?
I had one other
Anybody?
question, probably for Joe. We've talked about sidewalks in this area. Is there any place to put a sidewalk in this, or if not a sidewalk, can we? I know there's some foot traffic all through this area now. I don't know if there's anything we could think about at this point. If it be along the border, or a 3-foot sidewalk would be better than nothing.
Well, we could look at it.
From where to where? You know, I mean, there's not,
That's the problem.
you know, there's not,
Along the bypass, but
right.
along Frankfurt Road, we could look at whether.
Could you take it all the way to the interstate?
Yeah.
There is a lot of foot traffic in that area now.
Oh, I'm sure there is. I've been by the site and noticed quite a bit of foot traffic there as well. I just don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure the state.
I don't
will
see
even
the
allow-
end. I don't see the end of it. I don't see the end game of putting a sidewalk from, you know, property line to property line just in that section. I don't see.
Right there?
Just bring it up just so we can.
Sure.
If it could be approached,
Fairly
we
old.
should probably
Yeah.
we'll look at
Flying
closely
across that
Frankfurt
intersection
Road,
so fast, don't even look.
just because it
Wendy's
was,
has got to be.
there's no sidewalks in the general area.
I mean, I've seen people
Wendy's
do it.
across the road.
There's always people walking up and down Frankfurt Road.
A lot of
Yeah, they
people
walk-
work
they walk
in Wendy's
median.
and stuff, they walk to work, you know.
So in
There's a lot of.
gentlemen, in regards to the other conditions for approval, 6-foot sidewalk, we'll make those amended plans. I believe they've actually already been amended, and I have one copy of those that I brought with me, but I can make sure I get those with the final development plan. One concern that my client has is the requirement of a hydrant and the expense of said hydrant. In examining the fire department's ordinance in regards to these regulations, they do have authority based on jurisdiction. However, the location of the hydrant where they're proposing it, it will be at a great expense of my client. And in speaking with the fire marshal, the hydrant that's actually in place that would service or that would be used in case of fire at this property is located across the intersection at the Wendy's there, and the hydrant that's actually there actually has the gallons per minute that is at that hydrant is actually high enough to service all of those different properties there. His major concern was, making it safer for them to make the connection. It's not about amount of water. It's about making it safer to make the connection. The expense of the hydrant, I've spoken with Cole Mitchum at Kentucky American Water. The expense of the hydrant is going to be more than $15,000. And that's if it was placed on I guess that's the southwest side, so the opposite side of the entrance than what Joe had pointed out. If you go across the entrance, it's going to cause that cost to increase because you either got to bore under their entrance or we've got to, do encroachment. There's a lot of different issues that pop up if you try to do that. My client certainly understands life safety, and we applaud everybody that veterans, police officers, firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, but at some expense, we have to be prudent and careful where we spend our money.
I had a question
Yes.
along the same line for Joe. I assumed the city put in all the fire hydrants. I didn't know that was the individual property owner's responsibility. So every fire hydrant in the city is put in by private owners.
By the developer and paid for by the developer.
In downtown and everywhere.
And it's also paid for the developer is also required to pay for the hydrant for 3 years, the service for the hydrant for 3 years.
Yeah.
And there
which
are no
is,
other hydrants in this area
$79.
down here anywhere? On this side of
I'm sure there are.
Paris
I'm
Place?
not sure the closest one is,
It's not
I'm sure the closest
charge a maintenance fee.
location,
You get
probably
just
down near the
bill every-
Taco Bell,
Okay.
area.
Well, couldn't you come, if there's one down there, couldn't you come the back way with the hose?
The water main runs, here's the existing hydrant here in this location. The water supply to that runs in this direction. That's what was explained to me by Cole Mitchum, and the connection would be made here and brought over to service that hydrant. The proposed in the conditions of approval, this is the proposed location here. The cost estimate that I have is to place it here. So, the upwards of $15,000 more, it's definitely, you're looking at $20,000 plus to put it on the other side of that entrance.
Who's asking for that to be done?
Fire department, Georgetown Fire. I don't think it matters what size of water.
I think that could be worked out between them.
I think they just wanted it on this side.
Okay. It still is, that was, so I did that cost estimate in hopes that there would be some concession, but still in $15,000 plus.
Bless you.
That's a considerable investment that I believe we're asking my client to make in the city's infrastructure, at their expense. I don't know if there's precedents that the fire department uses when they select locations that they require fire hydrants to be placed. I asked Cole Mitchum with Kentucky American Water how often this request is made, and he said it's not a very frequent request, that generally the request comes with subdivisions, large developments, things of that nature, but very rarely does he get an inquiry on a single development that's, we're not changing the use of the property or anything like that.
My only problem is that I don't know where they based their decision that they needed that hydrant, or I'd just be guessing if I thought they didn't need it.
Sound like it's more of a traffic problem,
The marshal's
That they don't wanna come
explanation
across the
to me
road.
was life safety, bringing the line across the street. But there's not the traffic problem would be during the deployment of the hose. But once the hose is deployed, they have equipment that goes over the hose that allows the traffic to proceed. But his concern was life safety and deployment of the hose. Which, again, I can completely understand that and empathize with it, but there's inherent danger there regardless of, deploying a fire hose or an accident, working an accident in the middle of the intersection. There's some inherent dangers there anyway.
I would prefer to leave that requirement in there, and then you can work it out with the fire department afterwards.
Fire department or the
We
water
can't
company.
change that anyways.
I mean, they
We've got no
have-
authority to
we
change
leave-
that.
We leave that up to the fire department to determine, they have standards. I think they need a hydrant within 300 feet of the building or whatever it is, but I think they were more concerned with bringing it on across Brentford Road. So on this side, I think we'd have to talk to them, but I think they'd be flexible on which side of the intersection. Probably be better even closer to the bypass, because they could pull a truck in along the side of the building.
The closer you get to McClelland or the intersection, the less expensive it is. Just in conversation that I had with Fire Marshal Thompson was that, he wanted it somewhere in that entrance so that it's able to service the other Valero
Serve
and
everybody.
Radio Shack. Right. So again, we're asking my client to provide, that additional infrastructure for, property owners there and on down the line. I can't understand. I can't grasp. My client, nor myself, can grasp that.
I'd ask them to pitch in a little bit.
Yeah, I would think that would be something you'd have to work out with the
Yeah,
fire
right.
department. I don't think we have no say-so on any
But
of that.
that's just it. I don't think we have say-so, but we're making that one of our conditions. And that's a problem, I think. Especially when you're talking about to make sure you can serve Valero and other people. I mean, we don't have that authority. If we could, we wouldn't have a problem on Oxford Road and a number of other places.
Or the
I mean,
sidewalks. Exactly.
Yeah, we just can't do that.
Well, I mean, that's typically what we do in our conditions.
Well,
We just
and I know it
add
is
there
for
so
a
it's
subdivision
clear.
because you put in the streets, you put in the water lines, you put in the hydrants. But like you mentioned a moment ago, what about all the ones around town? Well, no, private people didn't open up a store and say, well, you gotta put a hydrant out front. I don't remember this ever happening on any of our approvals. And I'm sure I've overlooked it probably, but I got a real problem with that.
I mean, we have condition number 3, all requirements of the fire department.
Well, that's right.
Standard condition that we see, like.
Well, but this is something they're requiring a private person to do to serve other private people. I mean, that's in effect, we're making something binding on our applicant that we can't otherwise make binding on our applicant.
Yeah, I mean, if it reduced your insurance rates enough that it would pay for itself, that would be one thing.
That's another thing we have no say over whatsoever. This is dragging us down the road along with that fire hose. That's problematic.
What is your
So what do we do,
suggestion,
just
Carl?
take that condition out? Obviously,
They're gonna make him do it.
well,
anyway.
obviously, that when he takes his final development plan around, he's gotta take it to the fire marshal, and he's gonna sign off on it or not sign off on it. We've got nothing.
But that's his
you correct
dealing,
me-
that's his dealing with them.
Right,
That's
that's
not
what
us.
I'm saying. You
That's
correct me
not
if I'm
our
wrong. We don't have
requirement.
anything to do with that.
That's right, we don't.
We can't approve or
We don't.
disapprove that.
But I think Megan
Yeah.
says it's always a condition on.
Well, it does. It always says, it's a general condition that, you correct me if I'm wrong again, but I think we've always had that verbiage in there that it's a standard thing. The fire department has to sign off, utility companies have to sign off, Georgetown Water Sewer.
Because those services are
American-
there. Those services are there, not that they're gonna be putting in
No.
our assets for other private use.
And does it state that specifically? No, it's just in general.
Yeah.
That, like they all are, yeah.
If he can negotiate something different with the fire department, that would still
And I
meet
don't-
the condition that's.
Charlie, I don't
It's
think it
still under the
says.
condition that's approved by the fire department.
I don't think it says in there for other adjoining properties.
In
It
that case,
says
let's
in
put
there-
the road department in, and that way we'll get new roads out of it too. It's the same thing. It really is the same thing, and that's problematic. Now, this gentleman's not gonna sue us over it, so I mean, obviously we're not gonna get a problem, but in a sense, we're giving the city an asset over this gentleman's client and making them do something that we can't not make them do. Any more than we can make them go off-site and improve McClellan Circle or Paris Pike. I mean, we can't do that.
Probably need to have it.
Now, if they were moving in there and the fire marshal said, you have no fire service, you're gonna have to have a 6-inch line and a hydrant and all that. Oh, absolutely. Because that's what you gotta have to serve your property. In this case, that's not necessarily what they gotta have. They wanna have it up on this end so they can serve Valero and Radio Shack. We can't do that.
Yeah, I'm sure the fire department's looking out for their best interests on it.
Well, that's true, but they can't do it and we can't do it.
Yeah.
So that's why I agree with Joe's observation. You put it down, well, and the gentleman too, down near the corner. It serves those folks. It doesn't have to cross traffic, but it serves this property. That's reasonable. But to say, no, I want you to do another $15,000 worth of work to cover your neighbors.
That should be up to him to negotiate with the fire, right?
But it's our condition of approval.
But
That's
if he
different.
negotiates it to-
What they require this gentleman to do is their business. I can't deal with that. But if we make it one of our requirements that then authorizes them to do that, then that's us doing something we're not allowed by law to do.
So we take that condition out.
Which I hate to say do that, but we don't have that authority anymore. We could say go down
So
there and
I
fix
don't-
Valero's driveway.
I don't know that it's an actual, so I think what she was trying to, what I understood her to explain is, I don't believe it's an actual condition of your approval of our preliminary plan. It's in the comments, section of what you have in front of you. And in the conditions section, it actually says that we have to get their approval in order for you to approve it down the road. So the reason I bring it up for conversation today is, you know, that could be a sticking point that I don't get their approval for, you know, I'm not able to bring you their approval, is my concern.
Well, that's my concern, because we would be
You know,
requiring you to do something that we
there's not
can't
actual
otherwise require.
verbiage in the conditions that say, you know, you have to put a fire hydrant at this spot.
No, it says all applicable requirements of the Georgetown Fire Department.
Right.
And that's condition 3.
So we meet
of the approval.
In the ordinance, we meet all of those regulations
But
with
it also,
the exception of.
And also all, you know, applicable requirements of Georgetown Municipal Water Sewer Service, Health Department.
And GMWSS can't say, well, by the way, I want you to run water service up to the campgrounds. They can't do that. We can't make them, you know, we can't authorize
Am I
that.
mistaken that this is not standard procedure on
It
all
is,
this?
as long as they're requiring what goes to this applicant. Yes, that is standard, and
Well,
that's what this
I
has
don't see
always
where
been.
it's saying anything other than that.
Yeah.
They just said at Tech Review, they're requiring him to do something to service Valero.
Just leave our normal conditions, talk with the fire department, and then if they require something that's above and beyond their jurisdiction, then we have some legal stuff to figure out.
Yeah.
Well, but that's why I want the commission to know that that's what may be coming, because if that's what they're doing, then this is problematic.
So,
On the
so
preliminary,
our concern is that we can't bring you a final development plan for you to review and get the final approval of, because I'm not able to check off all the boxes.
I've
There's
got a
gonna be
question
one
for you,
box that doesn't
Charlie.
get checked
That's
off.
that you've got to get that straight with them. We can't.
and honestly, it doesn't say fire department. It says new fire hydrant per GMWSS specifications. So on the plan, if you look at it, it says new fire hydrant.
I'm looking at the conditions that we're
I know
looking
that,
at.
well, it doesn't say fire hydrant on the conditions. It's on the plan.
GMW.
Yeah,
It
but I
says-
think this here, Mark, they're just saying GMWSS has a standard.
But is it the
Fire hydrant.
specifications of the water department, not the fire department? I mean, it says it on the plan, GMWSS. I know what you're saying, John, and give me that look. But is it the requirements of the water department or the fire department?
Well, actually, it's a combination, because the water company's got to be able to give you the pressure.
Is that what it is?
And then the fire department says where they wanted to fight fire for this property. So there's sort of a
They tell you
combination.
whether you need and where
Yeah,
in a new development.
yeah.
The fire department.
Well,
And
that-
obviously, that's in accordance. You can't, you go through the steps. This is completely different, though. This is not a new, this is an existing
Yeah. Right.
development.
Not
This
even
is-
change of use?
This
Not-
isn't new, you know?
Yeah.
But if you go new, you have to go through the steps.
Right.
Obviously, water sewer is the first thing you check on. The engineering department down there says, yes, you've got X
You got
PSI,
service.
whatever. You go to the fire department, he is talking to the water company, and they said, yes, we can service a hydrant. How many hydrants? And I forget the footage, depending on what type of development you're doing. And you go through that process, all right? Well, these folks have bought an existing piece of property, and
Not even.
I guess it's my understanding now that the fire department says, oh, well, heck, we've got a shot to make them put in another fire hydrant, would be a whole lot more convenient for us on the other side of the road. But
And then
I
on the other
don't,
side of the lot.
yeah, I don't know that that's fair at all to
No.
to ask them to do that.
Not at all.
If it weren't enough before, when this development plan was done way back when, then there would have been a fire hydrant over on this side of the street. Or these buildings wouldn't have been built, because they would not have got their final development plan.
And the city
And
would
we
have
know
done
the
it.
fellow that developed the Radio Shack and the other little one stop.
That wasn't Mr. Schaefer, wasn't it?
Huh?
Was that Mr. Schaefer did that long ago? Or did he buy them? I don't know. Anyway, never mind.
Well,
If you
yeah.
see the text of the certification block for the fire department, I mean, it just says, I hereby certify that the development plan shown hereon has been reviewed and found to comply with the Georgetown Fire Department regulations, including any conditions of approval or exceptions noted hereon.
Yeah.
So they have to review the thing and say whether it meets their requirements. Now, if it already meets their requirements, I don't know that they can technically require additional.
So they have so in the ordinance, authority has jurisdiction. So if he says, he has a position where if he feels that it is a true need for a fire hydrant to be there, he can enforce that as a regulation.
Their ordinance, their regs allow him to do that.
Yes.
So how do we get in the middle of that?
Because it's our condition of approval.
Because I have to have his approval.
But you have to have his approval anyway on the.
Not in order to get ours. All he's got to get ours is a certification that, yes, there's water, fire, streets, sewers, all those things. Not that, oh, wait a minute, we're gonna get that free hydrant and
But-
on the other side, new location.
But regardless, I think we need to give him approval, and then if he wants to hire a lawyer to take it up with the fire department, then
We can't do that.
I don't think.
But
It is if
we
they
can't-
told
we
me they're
can't
gonna
guess.
have to do it.
as far as serving somebody else, I mean, Georgetown Fire Department's not here to speak, that they're asking him to put that here to serve somebody else. I mean, this gentleman just quoted that that's what y'all said in the
That's the
TRC.
discussion I had with Fire Marshal Thompson.
I mean, to
yes.
me, I'd rather hear that from Georgetown Fire Department, that that's why they want it there.
Well, and I'm not saying turn him down, I'm just saying that is an issue, we're gonna have to deal with that, because we can't require anybody to do anything that's gonna be serving somebody, we can't do that, period. We don't have that authority, we've never had that authority.
I just feel like, this is my own opinion, I just feel like if he works something out with Georgetown Fire Department and it's okay, then in our conditions of approval, he's met those, I don't see the problem. If he wants to put it down on the corner of McClellan Circle, I don't really care. As long as it's fine with Georgetown Fire Department.
So I hope that in getting approvals that it's that easy. I can put one at the corner of McClellan Circle. My client's able to make a small investment of, $5,000 to install it, which is reasonable. My client still has an issue with improving the city's infrastructure at their expense, but
But this
there
goes
is
back to-
some expense they're willing to incur to make that better. So our problem is if I go to Georgetown Fire and that's suitable to them, I'll come back and I'll have all the boxes checked in order for you gentlemen to approve my final development plat. If that's not suitable to Georgetown Fire and they want it $15,000 down the road, I may not come back with that box, and that's going to be what could keep that property from being developed.
The way I look at it, if private developers don't put in their fair share of infrastructure, we're never gonna have any. That's the way I look at it. In a development, take a raw piece of land out here, the developer goes out there, puts in all the water, all the sewer, all the streets. Am I wrong, John?
That's exactly right. And
I
I
mean-
think it's backwards.
If
So
they
I
don't
totally
do that, we're
disagree
never
with
gonna
you.
have streets.
It's the way it works.
I mean,
but
that's
it's
just,
not right.
to me, that's the way it works.
And
We've asked
generally-
other people.
And generally, I would agree with that.
We've asked other people, come in here with applications. Mr. Bevan's property, he didn't want to widen the road. We asked him to widen the road. He withdrew his application. That's his priority. I mean, he can do that.
But that's on his property. That's
But
different.
he's improving a public street. He
Which,
had to
which
improve-
Kentucky law does not permit. Period.
But
It-
we were requiring him to do it.
No, because on his property, because he's putting in 5 new lots and he's providing the street improvement for those 5 new lots. That's different. We are allowed to do that. In fact, I think some of us would say we're responsible to do that. Not to move it down there where it has nothing to do with his property. It serves the neighboring property.
That's like I don't care if he puts it down there on the corner. He can put it right there where the crossing walk sign is. As far as I'm concerned, I really don't care.
I agree. That's
But
the
if
whole point, because that's what would be enough to get his approval here.
Yeah.
But if they say, no, we want you to serve Valero, then I'm just simply telling you all, we've got a
Well,
problem
then
because
I
we
see a
don't have the
problem there too,
legality,
yes.
legal authority to do that.
I would see a problem there too.
We're in this that I don't see anywhere in here that it's saying that we're requiring him to put a fire hydrant in to serve Valero.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
All it says is that he abides by whatever's applicable from the fire department.
Correct.
That's correct.
That's the way I read it.
That's wide open. That's nothing specific.
It is if they require it, because we say, you gotta satisfy them to get this, period. That then gives them carte blanche to say whatever it is it's gonna
Then doesn't he
satisfy
need to
them.
go to city council with that? It wouldn't be our decision.
But
Not over our
that would be
requirement.
steps, yes.
We
That
don't
would
need
be
to have this
part of the
conversation
steps,
with one
yes.
another then. We need to have a
I
conversation
think-
with the fire department.
To address John,
At the
John's
next tech
comment,
review.
there is a specific the fire department does have specific requirements. You need a hydrant with this much pressure within this much distance
Yeah,
of a commercial
that's
building.
correct. That's true.
So if he meets that and it's not serving Valero, then,
Yeah,
and the
he may
fire
not.
department says, no, I'm not gonna sign the plat, then we'll have to deal with that.
He would have
We'll
to take
either
that up
to
with city council, not
Take the
us.
fire marshal to the mayor and have a discussion.
Well, except it's our requirement, so it's
Figure
still
out how we can
it's our concern,
address that
because it's our
issue,
requirement.
I mean,
we're
there is a
vague.
minimum requirement that has to meet.
And
We're not that
I guess
specific.
I'm happy for that to be part of the conditions. I'm just really, I wanted to bring it, into the light. Everybody knows it's on the table that, I could come back to Joe in a matter of weeks and say, I can get everything that is required from these conditions, but I cannot get this stamp with this signature on these final development plans. And what happens when that, what takes place, that's my concern.
You might as well not have any.
Right. Based on the
have
conditions,
them all.
based on the conditions that are here.
That's just been my experience in the past.
I don't have enough
I knew I had to have
expertise in
them
the
all.
area, but if they can legally require you to put a fire hydrant in, then that's how it is. If they can't legally require you to do it, then I wouldn't do it. I don't think we have, we can talk about it, but I think we need to just.
Well, but
we
that's
need to-
all it is. I'm not saying don't give them, don't do something tonight. But if they refuse approval and we require approval, even though it's necessary to fix somebody down the street, we don't have that authority. I don't think they do either, for that matter. So if that were to come about, then I think we would need to have a meeting with them and explain why we can't require that. And that, if you will, put the burden on them to require it, not on us, because we can't do that. We
So we
can't
just leave
require
this
anybody
condition
to
out?
fix something else.
Just leave that condition out of this.
No, because like
application?
Megan just said, we
I'm
always
not saying to
require
do that,
it.
because by and large, no, we want them to comply with everything. It's just that
Tim,
if
do you
if
need
they
to
go
get-
that far, then that creates a problem.
Do you need to
I
get
agree.
clarification
I
from the
agree
fire
with-
department?
I'm sorry?
Do you need to get clarification from the fire department to proceed with this?
No, I'm happy with the conditions that are here. I'm happy with those. The reason I wanted to bring that to light is that could become an issue. And,
If they're requiring you to put a fire hydrant in and you don't need to put it in,
that's right.
then it
So,
should be an
there
issue.
could be an opportunity, I don't know how we would proceed as the reason I brought this to the table. I don't know how we would proceed if I'm not able to check that box.
I'd say somebody would have to look into
I mean, you know, it's
legal.
What if they come to you and say, no, we want the
Legal
fire
requirements.
hydrant right where it shows on the plan? What will y'all do there?
there's not a fire hydrant on the plan.
Yeah, there is.
On this one, there is.
There's that fire hydrant, the location of that is to show where they're asking us to place it.
Yeah, I mean, what would happen if they come back to you and say, no, that's where we want it? What would y'all do then?
If they asked us to put it in a reasonable location that got it across the Paris Pike intersection and it supplied ours and it was the least expensive option, my client would be acceptable to that and, you know, would understand that, you know, they don't, so they wouldn't necessarily agree with it, but
They're required to go over there.
but if it's required to go $15,000 to $20,000 down the road, you know, that's a
Substantial difference.
right.
That was my question. What would you do if they say, no, that's exactly where we want it? What do you think y'all would do from there?
No, we want it up the road. We
Yeah.
want it up the intersection.
Where they show it on the plan?
I don't know. I haven't had those discussions with my client yet. I don't know.
Let's say they'd come back to us.
You know,
Or get a lawyer.
It could stay as it is today. I
Charlie,
don't
would they
know.
truly have to
I
come
mean,
to us, or would they actually have to go to city council?
They'd have to come to us to get that condition clarified, that wouldn't stop them from developing. So that would be us. Now, to get a waiver of what the fire department wants, they'd have to go to the fire department and ultimately maybe to council.
Okay. We
Beat
open-
this horse long enough?
We did.
Yes.
Was the fire department in TRC?
Yeah.
Did they know about this, that you guys didn't like this placement of this, or?
I've had discussions with Fire Marshal Thompson about the location and the necessity of the hydrant, and you know, I think there was some discussion with my client. I think he actually attended that meeting, the previous meeting, and you know, there was some heated discussion about it then, and that is what causes some concern about how flexible the fire department's going to be. Again, if it's in the corner, you know, in the right of way, just off of the water main, we're talking about a reasonable expense to my client. You know, otherwise, I don't see how we can ask them to bear the brunt of that expense.
Right.
As stated, you know, as a cost of doing business. That's, in my opinion, that's not a cost of doing business, and that's how it's been described to me by the fire department, is just a cost of doing business to install that.
Well, I agree, it's bad for one person to have to foot the bill for something that's gonna serve 5 or 6 businesses in the area. All right, you ready to move on?
I don't know. I just don't see how we can override what a fire marshal wants to. I mean, if they got a legitimate reason for it to be there, then that's.
Well, I don't think we need to take that out at all. That requirement is, if they've
Like I said, if that's up to
overstepped
you
their
guys,
bounds,
if you
then
can
they'll
get
come
it
back.
moved back, that's more power to you. I
I
just,
think so.
that's just my opinion.
I'd like to make a motion then. I'd like to make a motion to approve as presented with all the conditions in there. And you can have a battle and fight if it takes that, and if you have to come back, you gotta come back. But I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I second that.
If he's not,
I will too.
if he doesn't like all the conditions of
Then he's gonna
approval,
come back.
do we still go ahead and approve it?
Sure.
Okay. I've never had.
Because starting
that
point.
condition's not a
Absolutely.
problem
Yeah,
unless they
absolutely.
overstep.
Okay.
You
And
don't
then
wanna
he'll
be
come
held,
back here.
you don't wanna be held up till
made
next
the
month.
motion.
That's right. I don't want to walk out of here
Go
without
have his
approval of the
discussions with the
condition.
fire department,
That's
and
what
get that
I'm-
worked out.
John
We don't have
seconded
any
it.
say-so over
I think
that.
so too.
But I don't feel like we can cut them out of the loop as one of the conditions, because we never have. It's always been
Correct.
one of the conditions.
No, it's just a problem if they extend where they need to go, because then they'll have to come back here.
We're
But
not
no, we
saying-
don't cut them out of the loop. We don't ever want to do that.
Yeah.
I think it's something can be worked out between.
I think so.
A motion by Mr. Solsky to approve the application with the 10 conditions of approval.
Mr. Shirley.
Mr. Shirley?
Well, there was two of us. Did you second?
I think three of us seconded it.
Oh.
Mr.
Take your
Wiseman.
pick.
A second by Mr. Wiseman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion approved.
And then I need your signature.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Beat a dead horse.
Don't ever bring up a fire hydrant again if you're asking for something.
And that one's yours.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
You too.
Last item we have is approval of the meeting schedule for next year. We haven't changed anything on our
Make a motion to
proposed
approve after I've reviewed
Okay.
it. It looks good to
workshops
me.
at 4:30 on the second Monday, planning commission 6 p.m., second Thursday. All of the deadlines stay the same.
It's not always the second Monday, is it? It's totally required, depending on the second
Monday
Thursday.
prior to-
Monday prior to the second
Right.
Thursday.
Right. Yeah.
I made a motion.
I second.
I'm
Okay.
looking at when the meeting's over and stuff.
They're almost identical to this year's. I mean, John, I make a motion to adjourn. You need to take vote.
You got voting.
All in favor? Come on, man.
John made a motion to approve the meeting.
I did. Mr. Shirley seconded it.
Mr. Solsky made a motion to approve the meeting schedule. Mr. Shirley made a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion approved.
I make a motion to adjourn.
We don't need a motion to adjourn, we'll just adjourn. Is that all, Joe?
See you, John. Right behind you.